You know what? Nobody talks about the kid sitting alone at lunch. Everyone thinks they're just shy. The adult who turns down every invitation. People call them weird, difficult, unsocial. The person who genuinely prefers their own company. Society acts like there's something wrong with them. But here's what they don't tell you. That loner didn't just decide one day, yeah, I'm going to be alone forever. That was programmed into them. Not with dramatic abuse that makes the news. With the quiet kind, the normalized kind. The kind that happens behind closed doors while everyone outside thinks your family is perfectly fine. We live in a world obsessed with connection. Family is everything. Blood is thicker than water. Everyone's performing their picture-perfect relationships like it's a competition. But what happens when family was the thing that taught you people aren't safe? What happens when home was the place you learned to become invisible? Nobody wants that conversation. Too uncomfortable, too real. So let me show you what it actually looks like. Here's the thing about emotional neglect. It's invisible. There's no bruises, no yelling, no obvious signs that something's wrong. You have food. You have clothes. You have a roof over your head. On paper, you're fine. But nobody ever asks how you feel. Nobody checks in. Nobody notices when you're struggling. You come home from school and your parent is there physically, but they're on their phone, watching TV, busy with work, always too tired or too stressed to actually engage with you. You try to talk about your day. They give you half responses while staring at a screen. You stop trying after a while because what's the point? You handle your own problems, make your own meals when you're old enough, do your homework alone, figure out life alone, and adults praise you for being so mature and so independent. But you didn't want to be independent. You just had no other choice. Here's what that looks like years later. Someone asks you, "How are you feeling about this?" And you freeze because nobody ever taught you that your feelings mattered. Nobody ever modeled how to talk about emotions. You learned early that your internal world is your problem to manage alone. So you say, "I'm fine," even when you're not, because you don't know how to do anything else. You become the friend who listens but never shares. The partner who supports but never asks for support. The person who handles everything alone because depending on others feels foreign and uncomfortable. And people think you're just private or independent. They don't see that you're still that kid who learned that nobody's coming to check on you. So you stopped expecting anyone to care. Here's a dynamic that breaks people in ways they don't even realize until years later. One kid becomes the scapegoat. The one who gets blamed for everything. Parents fighting. Somehow it's because of something you did. Sibling messed up. You should have been watching them. Parent having a bad day. You're the reason they're stressed. It doesn't matter what actually happened. The story gets rewritten, so you're always the problem. You spill juice by accident. Normal parent response, "It's okay, grab a towel." Your parent responds, "Why are you always so careless?" Do you ever think before you do anything? This is exactly why I can't have nice things. Or your sibling breaks something and blames you. You tell the truth. You weren't even home. Doesn't matter. You still get punished because you're setting a bad example, or you should have prevented it somehow. You learn quickly. Doesn't matter what you actually did, you'll be blamed anyway. So you stop defending yourself. You stop explaining because it won't change anything. Fast forward 20 years. You're in a group work. Someone in your team makes a mistake. You had nothing to do with it, but your immediate response is anxiety. Your brain goes, "How is this my fault? What did I do wrong?" And here's where it splits into two patterns. Pattern 1. You over-apologize for everything. Sorry, I'm sorry. Even when you did nothing wrong. You take on blame preemptively because maybe if you apologize first, they won't come at you harder. You assume you're the problem because you always were at home. pattern too. You refuse to apologize for anything because saying, "I'm sorry," feels like admitting you're the villain they always said you were. Apologies feel like handing someone proof that you're the problem. So instead you withdraw. You go silent. You'd rather disappear than admit fault, because fault always meant punishment. Either way, being around people feels dangerous because people mean unpredictability. People mean potential blame. People mean you could be doing everything right and still end up being the villain. So you withdraw. Not because you hate people, but because being alone means nobody can rewrite reality and make you the bad guy. Here's one people don't talk about enough. Parentification. You're 8, 9, 10 years old, and you're raising your younger siblings, making meals, getting them ready for school, helping with homework, putting them to bed. Your parent is there, but they're not functioning. Maybe they're depressed. Maybe they're addicted to something. Maybe they're just checked out. So you step up because someone has to. Or maybe there's no younger siblings, but you're parenting your own parent. Listening to them vent about adult problems, managing their emotions, making sure they're okay. Becoming their therapist when you should be the one being taken care of. You become mature for your age. Adults love that about you. They praise you for being responsible, but inside you're exhausted. You're a kid doing adult work with no manual and no support. Here's what that looks like as an adult. You're incredibly capable. You can handle anything. Bills, crisis, emergencies, you've got it covered. You're the friend everyone calls when they need help. But when someone asks what you need, you don't even know because you never learned to have needs. You learn to be the solution, not the problem. People try to get close to you. They want to support you, help you, be there for you, and it makes you deeply uncomfortable. You don't know how to receive. You only know how to give. So you keep people at arm's length, not because you don't care about them, but because letting someone take care of you feels wrong, vulnerable, and scary. You learn to do everything yourself, and now even when you don't have to, you can't stop. Being alone feels easier, because alone you don't have to navigate the discomfort of being cared for. Then there's the opposite, extreme, the parent who won't let you breathe. They read your diary, check your phone, track your location, control who you talk to, what you wear, where you go. You have no privacy, no boundaries, no sense of self that isn't monitored and controlled. They say it's because they love you, because they're protecting you, because the world is dangerous and they just want to keep you safe. But really, they're suffocating you. You're not allowed to have your own thoughts without explaining them, your own feelings without justifying them, your own life without reporting every detail. You want to go to a friend's house, 20 questions. You want to close your bedroom door. What are you hiding? And if you try to set a boundary, if you ask for space or privacy, you're guilt-tripped. After everything I do for you, this is how you treat me. I'm just trying to be involved in your life. Why are you pushing me away? You learn closeness equals control, intimacy equals suffocation, love equals losing yourself. Here's what that creates. You grow up, and the second you have freedom, you guard it like your life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. Someone wants to get close. Your nervous system screams danger because closeness meant being controlled, being monitored, being consumed. So you keep people at a distance. You don't let anyone get too involved in your life. You don't share your location, your plans, your thoughts. Not because you're secretive, but because privacy feels like survival. And being alone means nobody can take your autonomy. Nobody can make demands. Nobody can guilt trip you for existing as your own person. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's finally being able to breathe. Here's a dynamic that makes you feel insane. Your parent hurts you, says something cruel, does something damaging, and you bring it up later. Their response, "I never said that." But they did. You remember it clearly, word for word. You're being dramatic. But you're not. It happened. It hurt. You're too sensitive. It was just a joke, but it wasn't funny. And now you're the problem for being hurt by it. You try to express how you feel. You try to set a boundary. You try to explain why something bothered you, and it gets dismissed, minimized, turned around on you. Why are you always bringing up the past? You need to let things go. Stop being so emotional. And here's the real mind, _. They never apologize, ever, because in their mind, they never did anything wrong. You're just making a big deal out of nothing. So you learn your feelings don't matter. Your perspective isn't valid. Bringing up hurt just causes more problems. You stop talking about how you feel. You stop expecting accountability. You stop believing that your pain is worth acknowledging. Fast forward to adulthood. Someone hurts you. They don't apologize. And instead of addressing it, you just move on or cut them off entirely because you never learned the middle ground. You never learned that healthy relationships involve repair, that people can hurt you and own it and make it right. You learned that talking about hurt is pointless. So you'd rather just be alone than deal with the cycle of being dismissed. You're sad. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. You're anxious. You're being ridiculous. There's nothing to worry about. You're angry. Don't you dare raise your voice at me. You're being disrespectful. You're excited. Calm down. You're being too loud. Every emotion you have is wrong. Too much, too dramatic, too sensitive. You learn to suppress everything, to keep it all inside. To never let anyone see what you're actually feeling because feelings are dangerous. Feelings cause conflict. Feelings make you a target. Here's what that creates. You become an adult who can't cry. Can't express anger without feeling guilty. Can't show excitement without immediately shutting it down because you don't know how to be anything else. You can only feel your feelings alone in your room, in your car, when nobody can see you. You are the safest person you have ever been with. So you isolate, not because you want to be alone, but because being around people means performing, means pretending you don't have the emotions you're not allowed to have. And eventually, being alone stops feeling like hiding and starts feeling like the only place you can be real. Here's the pattern. These dynamics, emotional neglect, scapegoating, parentification, suffocation, dismissal, emotional suppression, favoritism, they all teach you the same lessons. People are unpredictable. Your needs won't be met. Being yourself leads to conflict or rejection. Independence equals survival. So you adapt. You become self-reliant. You learn to handle everything alone. You stop expecting people to show up for you because they never did. And that adaptation, it doesn't go away when you leave home. You carry it into every friendship, every relationship, every social situation. Someone wants to get close. Your brain says danger. Someone offers help. Your brain says you can't trust it. Someone tries to know the real you. Your brain says they'll use it against you. So you pull back. You keep walls up. You stay surface level. You protect yourself. And people call you distant, cold, hard to read, impossible to get close to. You're just still operating from the survival patterns you learned when you had no other choice. Let me tell you something most people will never understand. Surviving a toxic family and coming out the other side intact. That's not weakness. That's not damage. That's warrior-level strength. You raised yourself. You became your own parent, your own support system, your own source of validation. You built an identity from nothing with no blueprint and no help. Most people never do that. Most people spend their whole lives depending on external validation, needing constant reassurance, falling apart when relationships end. But you can handle anything alone because you've already survived worse. That's power most people will never have. You can lose a job, a relationship, a friend group, and you'll survive. You always do because you know how to stand alone. You know how to rebuild. That's not sad. That's not something to fix. That's strength that came at a cost. But it's still strength, bone deep, that you can handle whatever comes. That's not something to apologize for. That's not something to balance out with forced vulnerability. That's rare strength that most people will never develop because they never had to. You built yourself when nobody else would. You became whole without needing anyone to complete you. You figured out how to stand when everyone else needed someone to lean on. And yeah, maybe that means you don't need people the way society says you should. Maybe that means connection feels optional instead of essential. Maybe that means you're genuinely content alone. That's power. That's freedom. That's what surviving looks like when you win. You survived a family that didn't give you safety. You adapted. You evolved. You turned trauma into a life skill that actually works. That's not damage. That's mastery. Society wants everyone to be the same. Open, trusting, constantly connected, and they pathologize anyone who operates differently. But here's the thing, their way isn't superior. It's just common. You choosing solitude isn't a deficit. It's a different operating system. One that runs on self-reliance instead of external validation. One that values peace over performance. One that protects what matters instead of giving access to everyone. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you live. You don't owe anyone vulnerability just because they think you should be more open. You don't owe anyone access to your inner world. You built that world yourself. You get to decide who enters it. And if the answer is nobody or very few people, that's not sad. That's boundaries. That's standards. That's self-respect. People who've never had to protect themselves will never understand why you guard your peace so fiercely. And that's fine. Their opinion doesn't matter anyway. You know what you survived. You know what you built. You know what you're protecting. And that's enough. If you know a loner who needs to hear it, share it with them. Protect your peace. Trust your journey. And remember, you're not wrong. You're just built for something different.